We all like to hear a story about an unlikely hero, don't we? I know I do. And I am going to focus on a young slave girl. And these are my notes. I didn't organize anything so you can see all the arrows. So this is probably how the story's going to go right now. So little slave girl in the Old Testament, and she has one verse in Second Kings. So Old Testament of the Bible, the book of Second Kings, chapter 5, and verse 3. And it says, this is the New Living Translation, and this translation says, "One day the girl said to her mistress, 'I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy.'" So let me back all the way up, because the story is about a great man named Naaman. And when you grow up in church, or a lot of us have heard the story about Naaman, we hear that a lot. But this one verse about this young slave girl is so important. And it only takes one verse. It only takes one verse, one sentence to spur on a miracle. So Naaman was this powerful dude, and here, I'll give you 5 characteristics of Naaman. So Naaman was an army captain. He was considered a great man, character and loyalty. He was honorable because of his military success. And he was a mighty man of valor. So mighty man of valor from his military prowess, his strength, and his fame. And then the 5th thing that we know about him is that he had leprosy. Now, in this time, leprosy was a very contagious, uncurable disease. And by Mosaic law, Jewish law, you had to isolate yourself because it was contagious. And he was not Jewish. He did not follow the one true God. So that's important to know. And so he did not have to isolate. So what we can gather from all of this information about Naaman is that he was an extremely powerful man, yet he was powerless against this disease that was eating away at his body. So where does this little slave girl come in? So young girl, no name, and she had been captured in one of the battles. So young girl, captured, taken away from her family, stolen away from her family, foreigner in a foreign land, probably has to learn a new language, doesn't know the traditions, is trying to figure out a way to keep her faith in this foreign land, because these people, Naaman and his wife, and they were not Jewish. So she has to try to figure her way around all of these things. How does she keep her faith? What other challenges? So she's young, she's a female, she's a girl. And we know in this time in history and these cultures that this is probably why even his wife has no name. They don't have names. The men have the names, the men have the power, the men have the title, the men have the land, the men get the dowry. So many challenges for this little girl. She's been stolen away from her family, so she has no one. She has no family, she has no one. She is a girl, she's female, powerless. She's a foreigner in a foreign land. She's a slave. So not much going for this little girl, right? And how could she end up being some kind of a hero? Sounds like a Disney movie. Disney movie. I get too excited and I can't get my words out fast enough. Anyway, so the little servant girl, she goes to her mistress, so Naaman's wife, and she says that one verse, that one sentence to her. And she says, I wish my master would go see the prophet in my homeland, because he could heal him. He could heal Naaman. He could heal him. And so this one sentence goes into the mistress. And so the mistress goes to the master Naaman and talks to Naaman about this. And if you go to this prophet, you can be healed. And so the wheels are turning. This one little girl, out of her faith and her bravery and her courage, that she had no idea that she was setting the course for a great miracle to happen. And so the little girl tells the wife, she plants the seed. She's brave enough to witness, to talk about her God, to talk about her faith, by telling the mistress, your husband, my master, can go to this prophet Elisha and be healed. So she plants the seed. She allows God to use her even when she doesn't know it. And I think that's such a big thing. I heard Sheila Walsh, a female preacher speaker, say something. It was, yes, God. And I think she even has it tattooed on her arm. Yes, God. Be willing to say, yes, God. It's none of our business how or when or with whom he's going to use us, but he will use us if we say, yes, God. So the little girl allows God to use her without even knowing how or why. And this was a little girl where, she's powerless. She's weak. She's little. So why would a weak and powerless, without worth, be able to accomplish great things? God uses the weak, the meek, the unlikely, the unimaginable to do his work, to do great things in his name, for him, for his purpose, for his glory. And her voice was heard. And I think that's incredible. This little girl's voice was heard, even though she was all the things that she shouldn't be in order to even speak, much less be heard. And what do I want to say? Okay, so she was seemingly insignificant, and I thought that was it. I like that. I don't know if that's what I should say there. She was seemingly insignificant, but she became the vessel, the conduit for deliverance, for the miracle that needed to take place. She showed compassion. Okay, these people owned her. They had stolen her away and, defeated her land, her people. And rather than seek revenge, to be spiteful and to be hopeless, she chose to walk, to talk, and to move with compassion, even in the midst of her captors. To have that kind of a heart, to have that kind of a spirit, and to have that kind of a connection with God, that we would choose to always walk in strength and compassion. So then the story goes on. Oh, this is so long. So the story goes on, and Naaman goes to see Elisha, who is this prophet, and he shows up, and Elisha sends a messenger. Elisha does not. So Naaman has his panties in a bit of a twist, because, he is this famous, powerful, great man. And this prophet's not even going to come and greet me. There was no hullabaloo. There was nothing. The messenger came, and the messenger gave the message from Elisha and told this Naaman to go and to dip himself in the Jordan River, which was this dirty, not even like a major, not important, not a big deal river. He said, go to the River Jordan, dip yourself in there 7 times, and you will be healed. Well, Naaman didn't like that at all, but he did go. He heard what the girl had said, and he went. Not happy. His pride was getting in the way. He was angry. He was arrogant, and he was getting ready to turn around and leave. And then some of his men said, why don't you just do this? Because the little girl said, and the prophet said. So, what could it can't get worse, right? You've got it. Either it helps or doesn't. So Naaman humbles himself, and he goes and he dips himself in the river 7 times, and he is healed. So once he humbled himself and obeyed what God wanted him to do, he was healed. And then he realizes that even with all of his human power, all of his human fame, all of his human money, because there's the other thing, he was trying to pay Elijah, and Elisha was like, nope, no thanks, nope, nope. So even his money couldn't buy the healing for him. So once he humbled himself and got rid of that pride and got rid of that arrogance and just obeyed and did what God asked him to do, even though it made no sense to him, then he was healed. And once he was healed, with God's help, with God's miraculous power, then he goes back and he praises the one true God, and he takes us back to his land and his people. So this one little girl with no name and only one verse, it just so happened, it's my favorite phrase, it just so happened that God could use her exactly as she was, where she was, because she had the faith in the one true God. She had the faith in God to just say, yes, God, and to just walk with and in God and in his power and in his words. We've talked about words, I think, just yesterday. And because this little girl who was considered worthless, who was insignificant, who was a slave, God used her. Just so happened. He knew, and he knew he could use her. And with her one sentence, he could set the course for miraculous things to encompass, to show through for an entire nation. So, unlikely hero, a little powerless, weak, insignificant girl. And she said yes. And it just so happened that God used her to initiate an incredible miracle. So remember that. And as you walk through your day, your night, as you walk through the weekend and your week, remember that if you say yes, God, and you just leave yourself open, he will use you no matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you've been through. God will use you in great and mighty ways that you may never, ever even know about. Just so happened, an unlikely hero from a little girl.